Don in London, hello. April 10th, my video all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour, equally addictive about being in the right place with the right people, with the right things, trying to fit in. And very trying at times for myself and other people, because when the addiction was at its worst, when I couldn't stop drinking alcohol, in any shape or form that I could get my hands on, it was very ugly, and it made me feel ugly inside and ugly on the outside. I didn't want to know me, and I didn't want people to know me. These days I'm just going along one day at a time to see how life can turn out, with some help and support from a fellowship, and that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Not the only way to get sober, I can say. And in these videos I can speak for myself, but I cannot speak for AA or anybody in it, because they are all, like me, unique, authentic people in this one time and place today, with one similarity, and that's a desire not to drink today. So from being an alcoholic, active, unable to stop, 24/7 drinker, in abject pain, there's less pain today, but I still get the pain of learning and the pain of normal feelings. So, but I'm not in that sort of pain this morning when I'm doing this video, but it's the start of the day, so something may happen. At the moment, bright sunshine outside, so I feel cheered up by it. I feel okay. So what does fellowship do for me? Well, it helps me sort out my emotional and spiritual core, my well-being, if you like. That doesn't mean I'm going to be happy all the time, but it also means I'm going to be sad some of the time. So it's getting a balance of, as life is, my feelings fit, and I'm coping with the moment of now, the only place where we can live, without drinking, and even not thinking about it, even though I'm talking about it now. So the fellowship has made this possible, but along the way, family, community, professionals kept me alive long enough, and still do, because I have 2 other chronic ailments besides, and I live my life. So how does AA help me? Well, the format of this video, I share the AA preamble and some of the readings from AA pertinent to this month and today. And in the process of doing that, that's part of my own meditation and sharing a message of experience, strength and hope. So this is just one voice, and what I know about recovery is it's the many voices, the wisdom of many in the fellowship and outside it, in family, community, society and professionals. So we take our wisdom from where we need it. We start learning again, we start making mistakes, and it's quite difficult to get over the fact that at any age we still need to keep on learning how to live life. And I've got a lot of gratitude for that, and that's partly why I do these videos as well, to be enthusiastic that life can work again when it got to a place where it wouldn't work at all. So the AA preamble, which is on this little card, I'll read it out, and the reason why I read it out rather than recite it is so that it slows me down and makes me think about what I'm going to say next. And inside this piece of card you can see just about the 12 steps and 12 traditions. So the 12 steps help me live my life daily, and the 12 traditions help keep the fellowship healthy and unified. So steps are for open, honest and willing to learn life for today. It's a one-day program, 24 hours. We can restart at any time. And 12 traditions which keep the fellowship focused on being sober and sharing a message. So AA, what is it? This is the AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And broadly, where it says AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, and does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorsing or opposing any causes, what it means is AA, the fellowship, is there for sobriety, but we keep all our affiliations, values and beliefs, personal values and beliefs, because that's what it's all about, being ourselves. So it's the broadest of broadest fellowships you can possibly think of, because nobody's excluded. Nobody's excluded, which means that we have every denomination, sect, cult or whatever represented in the people who are there, but they're there for one reason: sobriety, and sharing a message of how to be sober, so you can be anything you want to be and be part of anything you want to be, and you have the freedom to choose how to live to your way of life. And if you haven't got a way of life, like I hadn't, then you start to learn that you can have one, and then it starts to develop all over again. So it's a restart, if you like, in the best possible way. So we take the wisdom from others and make what we can of it, and sometimes we hear good wisdom and we like it and we adopt those particular ways of looking at the world, and then we find there are many who we just don't accept their outlook or their way of life because it's alien to us. But we respect the differences, we respect diversity in all categories that the government or anybody else might come to consider. So we learn to be ourselves and rub along with everybody, no matter what, because there is no conflict around the primary purpose, which is sobriety. So that's why it works, and that's why people get their individuality back, why they find their purpose in life is to live it, and to enjoy it when it can be enjoyed, and also be sad when it's just sad and plain horrible. It won't take away the pain of life, but it sure makes it possible to understand why we're in pain and how life can change. And I'm very lucky. I'm alive. And a few years ago I just didn't want to live anymore. So I feel enormous gratitude to all those people in fellowship, around which we have unity, service and recovery as the primary goals. That's it. You know, that's it. Unity, service and recovery. So, daily reflections today is all about step 4 in this book. Step 4 is about doing a personal self-appraisal, which we then share later on with somebody else, to understand what's worked and what hasn't worked in our lives. And that's a bit of a tall order, but it's a good thing to do. We have to do self-appraisals in work, and some of us have never done it. Or we've done it so many times, we think, why do we have to do it again? Well, the answer is, it's around our emotional and spiritual. Emotional is how we felt over the years, and spiritual is how did we cope with life. Spiritual, according to many, is simply the ability to cope with now. So this for April 10th, and it says about growing up. Something I hope is going to take the rest of my life to keep on growing in the best possible way in terms of experience and wisdom on how to live and choose what I can and cannot do on a daily basis. So growing up. The essence of all growth is a willingness to change for the better, and then an unremitting willingness to shoulder whatever responsibility this entails. And we do have responsibilities to ourselves and those people around us who we love, and to the bigger society, I guess. Some of us, sometimes when I've become willing to do what I should have been doing all along, I want praise and recognition. I don't realise that the more I'm willing to act differently, the more exciting my life is. The more I'm willing to help others, the more rewards I receive. That's what practicing the principles means for me. Fun and benefits for me are in the willingness to do the actions, not to get immediate results. Being a little kinder, a little slower to anger, a little more loving, my life better, day by day. So it's incremental change. It's not a great big... There's a lot of buzzwords coming out of politics in the UK about step change. And I've been out of the the finance world for a long time, but there was a lot of talk about step change in the early 90s, and it was consultant speak for making a big change quickly in order to gain massive results in the shortest possible time. And the government's trying to do this with our medical health service. So it's a bit of a conundrum, because I know that when I've tried step change when it comes to something I just don't know how to change, I was clueless. So when I talk about 12 steps working every day, it's not a burden, it's incremental, small changes to know what I can and cannot do, and keep on learning the wisdom to know the difference. So step change, 12 steps, takes a while to get comfortable with, and in the first 90 days we're just dealing with the cravings of the physical side of our ailment, wanting to drink because our body says we need it. And that's what addiction is, not being able to stop doing something which is harmful. Self-harming in the worst possible way, because it's going to kill us. Looking at as Bill sees it, and by the way, when I talk about politics or step change or anything like that, it's nothing to do with fellowship, but that's just an example of how consultant speak came from somewhere, and a lot of things came from AA, underpinning many changes that society goes through, but not realising why or how. And the answer is, it wasn't all AA. It's taking the best of all sorts of understandings about what is the best way to live life. But it's called steps. So baby steps people talk about, or gentle steps, and then we get these ideas of step change, which maybe politicians are starting to get to know about, because they've gone to business schools and all the consultants and educators speak about step change. But it's a very old idea, and mostly it doesn't work, because there is no integration, there is no understanding of what it means to make those great big steps, other than the harsh reality of chopping and cutting. And that's what we don't do in AA. It's a loving program. We learn how to love ourselves so we don't act destructively towards other people, and then maybe they can love us back. So, in As Bill Sees It, this book, page 111, it says surveying the past, and the step 4, where we do our self-appraisal, is what it's all about. We should make an accurate and really exhaustive survey of our past life as it has affected other people. In many instances we shall find that, though harm done others have not been great, we have nevertheless done ourselves considerable emotional injury. Emotional injury is self-harm. Then, too, damaging emotional conflicts persist below the level of consciousness, very deep, sometimes quite forgotten. Therefore, we should try hard to recall and review those past events which originally induced these conflicts, and which continue to give our emotions violent twists, thus discolouring our own personalities and altering our lives for the worse. We have reacted more strongly to frustrations than normal people. By reliving these episodes and discussing them in strict confidence with somebody else, we can reduce their size and therefore their potency in the unconscious. And you know what, when you see somebody flare up in the street, anger over tripping over a pavement, say, and they react in a mad way, or they're at a bus stop, or they're waiting in a queue in the market, and somebody pushes in, and the anger and frustration which is shared, either underneath the surface by them going purple with rage, or by expression of rage about this particular incident, but everything from the past has actually launched this person into a frustrating, angry person. And that's what happens when we build things up. So the whole process of the steps is to undo all that wreckage, all that damage. And I know when I was back in the big career, I went up against people who had power over me, and still I went up against them because that's what I thought I ought to do. And I wasn't being paid for that. I was being paid for something else, which was to try and help them with their issues. But of course, if they reject the help, what do? You stand on your own 2 feet and you start to fight. and behave in a belligerent way. And if they have the power and you don't, you or I, as I did, suffer consequences. And they were awful. They were very awful consequences to me, not to them, in terms of damage done. And then the only thing I could think to do was, well, it took a long time, let's say that. A long time to understand, and then some years later, when I couldn't stop drinking, because life was just so horrible, it was touch and go too many times. And it didn't have to be like that, because I didn't really understand how the game worked, because I was all into changing business, people, organisations, because that's what I was paid to do. And it didn't stick unless I did it my way. But then, that was just one way. And the good news in fellowship is you don't have to be anything but yourself and find out what your feelings are today and live life knowing how you feel. So your feelings fit the experience you're having. When we are tasked with doing the impossible and still we do it, or what seems impossible, and we exhaust ourselves in one dimension of our lives, the rest of our lives can fall apart. And that's what happened to me. So these days I'm looking for balance across the piece. This, the 24-hour day book, not an AA book, but produced by Hazelden. I think that's right. And it's about recovery, and the words resonate sometimes, and sometimes the words are putting the person back in charge of the world, when in fact we're only in charge of our freedom to choose how we fit in the world. So thought for the day from the 24-hour day book. When I came to AA, I came into a new world, which is true for me, a sober world, a world of sobriety, peace, serenity and happiness. Well, I was a definitely unhappy person when I first started, and I was also clinically depressed, which I didn't know and hadn't known for a long time. But I know that if I take just one drink, I'll go right back into that old world. And the reason why? Because I have an allergy or a malady. The first drink is what does the damage. It's not the fourth or the fifth. It's not an attempt to be the old self. That will just put me back in the old way of behaving, because it takes the edge off. It's me trying to fix my feelings or trying to relax, and the answer is to be relaxed in the moment of now, even when it means hard work, endeavour and frustration. Be relaxed about being frustrated and learning. That alcoholic world, that world of drunkenness, conflict and misery, that alcoholic world is not a pleasant place for an alcoholic to live in. Looking at the world through the bottom of a whiskey glass is no fun after you've become an alcoholic. Do I want to go back to that alcoholic world? Well, today I don't want to, and there's no reason why I should, because I'm doing the healthy thing, which is to know the fellowship program, to find out how it works for me as a unique, authentic being, so that my emotions are fitting the experience I'm having today, so that I haven't got a spill of feelings from the past, or trying to actually fix things from the past which don't exist anymore. I live now, and that's the beauty of the program. So in unity, service and recovery within fellowship, the unity is around sobriety, not around being the same as other people, because it is about valuing diversity. Service is about helping each other, and recovery is what it's all about. That's it for me today. That's April the 10th, and the Serenity Prayer, which helps me, and there will be previous recordings from previous years which follow on from this. Serenity Prayer always works at any time of day, in any moment, around the frustration or the peacefulness of life. And it's to God or good conscience, whichever is your choice. Picking a higher power. God works through people for me, so my higher power is the wisdom of others. That's how it manifests today. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, for me, is just for today. To either substance or behaviour, my addictive substance, alcohol. my behaviour equally addictive if alcohol unavailable, or in combination. So, alcoholic in recovery, knew I could be obsessed by people, places and things, work, relationships, collecting, materialism, I guess a marketing person's dream. And these days, just ambling along, or striving along as life experience demands sometimes, or I need to be plugged into the world in a certain way. And that's to be conscious and aware of reality, and be able to be sober one day at a time. And what I've learned over the last few years is I benefit greatly from a one-day program, courtesy of a fellowship which grew over the last 80 years or so, and that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't speak for AA, never can, never will, never want to. I can share about my experience, strength and hope of recovery as a human, finding out what it's like to be sober one day at a time. And the more days I go along continuously in sobriety, the more life has meaning, depth. I feel it, I experience it, and I learn how to live it. And sometimes life is what it is. So there are no breaks in sobriety. It's not different to anybody else's experience, other than the filter has gone. The things which I used to filter away, the sadness, the depression, the feeling of inadequacy, the feeling of less than, trying to be perfect, trying to fit in, trying to be just very trying often. So these days, one day at a time, recovery from addiction seems to work. Addict in recovery, doesn't matter what the substance was. I never got round to any more, I guess. Well, yes, I did. Nicotine, caffeine, chocolate, food, anything. Those things which we use to fix and feel better, either if it's a moment long, or a day long. And often we start with conviviality around the things that we like. Then we find we want them, or need them rather, and then we want them. And when we get to a place of want, we then find that self-will comes into play, because we want to constrain ourselves. And the more we try and constrain our wants, the more we seem to want. So these days, less wanting. And what a relief that is. So, you know, life is as life is. It is what it is. And sometimes it's working well, and sometimes it's not working well. But the gift of recovery is that I'm facing reality. And this fellowship, AA, the anonymity bit, is the sanctuary like you would experience from a doctor, a counsellor, or somebody who is there to help you in confidence. Anonymity affords sanctuary to find out what the truth is. And as we start to face the truth, it becomes palatable. We start to understand that truth is better than fiction or exaggeration. Truth is better than hiding from it or denying it. And truth is something we can deal with if we learn how. And I guess for me, I didn't learn how very well for a long time. I learned how to cope, and often coping strategies are mentioned as a way to get on, or ways to keep on going. But a coping strategy is just that. Strategy maybe is the wrong word. A coping tactic in a lifelong process, which is living. So coping, strategies for that can overwhelm us in the end, because we keep on coping too long, and self-will will run out eventually, and we have to find a balance again. So these days, restored to sanity is a daily process, letting go of trying to make it so on a daily basis, and knowing that I'm powerless over alcohol, and taking a drink would make my life unmanageable again. Why? Because if I took one drink, I'd wonder what the next one would be like, and the next one, and the next one, and before I knew where I was, I would be back in the same old mess all over again. So for me, AA has saved my life, and I don't say that glibly. It's a truth for me, and I share about how AA helps me, from the statement of intent about what AA is to some of the readings from AA as well. So I'll start with the AA preamble, shared at every meeting I go to, and it's been a while since I've been to one due to an unfortunate fracture in my foot, but I hope to remedy that today. So the AA statement of intent reads as this: Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So, all well and good. And as it says there, we leave our politics, our religion, our everything else, and we only go into the fellowship with one intent, and that's a desire to stop drinking, and then share experience, strength and hope in how we do that. And sometimes people share their politics and their religion, which is perfectly acceptable, but we don't impose it on anybody. People come to their own conclusion about how to live their lives and get their choices back, and that's just simply what the fellowship does. So it is about tolerance, love and understanding. It's all about finding a way forward. And in the literature of AA, in the Daily Reflections, this book, it talks about the 12 steps, 1 a month, 12 steps of action to help a person find a better attitude and behaviour to each day. And April is all about step 4 and doing a fearless moral inventory of ourselves, so we know where we're coming from and what we can do today. So it sounds like a big thing, and I suppose it is, because we're taking stock. And as we take stock and see where things went wrong, we become aware of some of our character traits, if you like. Some we might like and some we are not so keen on, but they're all part of us. And the purpose of doing the audit or inventory is simply we can change. We can change. So for today, April 10th, it says about growing up. The essence of all growth is a willingness to change for the better, and then an unremitting willingness to shoulder whatever responsibility this entails. And it goes on to say, sometimes when I become willing to do what I should have been doing all along, I want praise and recognition. I don't realise that the more I am willing to act differently, the more exciting life is. The more I am willing to help others, the more rewards I receive. That's what practicing the principles means to me. Fun and benefits for me are in the willingness to do the actions, not to get immediate results. Being a little kinder, a little slower to anger, a little more loving makes my life better day by day. And it's not about getting praise for all those things we thought we ought to have done before, but now we're doing. It's about just living life and getting along gently. And there's a piece here in the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. It says, we thought conditions drove us to drink, and when we tried to correct these conditions and found that we couldn't to our entire satisfaction, our drinking went out of hand and we became alcoholics. It never occurred to us that we needed to change ourselves to meet conditions, whatever they were. And when I said life is what it is, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's just very, very challenging, and it's full of every emotion that we can possibly imagine. Our feelings go up and down. These days, though, I don't look for oblivion, which is what I used to. So what helps me on a daily basis? Always the serenity prayer to good conscience, or to God, or a higher power, of your choosing and understanding what is unique and authentic to you. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference for me is always just for today. Recovery from either addiction to substance or behaviour, or addiction to both substance and behaviour. My substance, alcohol, my behaviour, trying to be perfect, never so, always feeling less than, maybe trying to put on a brave face, utilising my ego, and behind that a lot of fear fear of not being good enough. And today I'm learning it's okay to be just about good enough on a daily basis, and that we all have a contribution to make to ourselves and to society. And I am better able without a drink inside me. So in recovery from alcoholism, in recovery from any other extreme behaviour, always at the extremes, probably trying to do my best, and never knowing that it's okay just to strive enough to make life work. So these days I'm not haunted, if you like, by old ideas, old ways, trying to prove myself to other people. All I need to do is find, I suppose, a balance in life. And really what has helped me most is the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, to find this balance in living with spiritual, emotional and physical well-being. Those are really the three areas where I can actually make some progress: emotional, spiritual, physical, and do the best I can with what I have. And that doesn't mean striving to extremes these days. It's about enough and being happy and having made a good contribution, not only for me but for society, I guess, or family, just being part of again, to be included, to love, to be loved, and have something useful to do. So part of my usefulness really is me sharing my message of experience, strength and hope. And as I say, the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, has helped me immensely. And I go to meetings and I utilise the 12-step program and understand the 12 traditions of the fellowship as I understand them. So all good for me this morning. How am I feeling? Okay. Got enough sleep? Why? Because I was not troubled, if you like, by the what-ifs of life, or worried about maybe I've missed something. There is always another day to pick up where we left off, as long as it's not a drink or a drug or a piece of behaviour at the extremes. And when I go to meetings of AA, by the way, I do not speak for AA. There are no leaders, just trusted servants, and I'm not even one of those, except for making tea and greeting on the doors. I enjoy that immensely, and if I needed to sweep up, I'd do that too. So, what do we say at AA meetings? We have a preamble, which sort of gives the game away, in essence, in 2 paragraphs. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, and it certainly isn't part of my... There is no view from AA on my videos, nor should there be, and I have no view on what other AAs may feel or think about my videos. Well, I do a bit, but yes, I can be heard. Or gets false pride and all those things. Go back to where I am. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And you know, that final sentence, our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety, covers a multitude of activities based on the 12 steps of the AA program and the 12 traditions. And there will always be room for discussion and change and understanding and moving with the times, hopefully, or we actually start to ossify, fossilise and make no progress. So part of me doing these videos is saying there is a way forward if we are stuck in the allergy or the olicism or the ism of any particular addiction, and we find our path by acknowledging it, accepting it, and trying to do something about it on a daily basis. And the reason why it's so important to do it in the day is really we only have this one day to experience and to make as good as we can and be a part of and not control it, maybe, all those things. And in the AA 12-step program, it's all about step 4 and some of the literature, like this book here, Daily Reflections, which I'll read from in a moment. And in the 12 by 12 Steps 12 Tradition book, there are summaries about step 4, and I'll read a bit out of that one first, I think, and then there is As Bill Sees It as well. And it's Good Friday today, very important for everyone, I guess, because we're all impacted by it, whether we're believers or not. You know, it does have an impact on our lives, and I respect other people's views. Anyway, coming to 12 and 12, step 4, what's it all about? Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And the first paragraph, Creation gave us instincts for a purpose. Without them we wouldn't be complete human beings. If men and women didn't exert themselves to be secure in their persons, made no effort to harvest food or construct shelter, there would be no survival. If they didn't reproduce, the earth wouldn't be populated. If there were no social instincts, if men cared nothing for the society of one another, there would be no society. So these desires for sex relations, for material and emotional security, and for companionship are perfectly necessary and right, and surely God-given, or by nature and providence. Yet these instincts, so necessary for our existence, often far exceed their proper functions. Powerfully, blindly, many times subtly, they drive us, dominate us, and insist upon ruling our lives. Our desires for sex, for material and emotional security, and for an important place in society often tyrannize us. When thus out of joint, man's natural desires cause him great trouble, practically all the trouble there is. No human being, however good, is exempt from these troubles. Nearly every serious emotional problem can be seen as a case of misdirected instinct. When that happens, our great natural assets, the instincts, have turned into physical and mental liabilities. So that is the start of step 4 in the 12 by 12, 12 steps and 12 traditions. And for me, sorry about this, I had to lean over to get my coffee. For me, it's emphasising there is always balance in what we're doing, spiritually, emotionally, physically, trying to make life work as we can, or rather live life, not make it. Live life as it is and experience and learn from it. And in my growing up, there was a lot of fear, financial insecurity, and always striving to do as best we could. And in my family, all the children, me included, had to go out to work early, or cut short our education and then go back and get it later, simply because there was no money and no way of making life work as a family without us doing that. No blame, no shame on that. It's just the way life is. Sometimes life is tough. This may come out a bit disjointed. I was going to read from As Bill Sees It, but I actually think Daily Reflections, this one, might be more apposite or appropriate, following on from that 2 paragraphs from the 12 by 12, all about natural balance, if you like. And in this, for April 10th, it says, growing up. The essence of all growth is a willingness to change for the better, and then an unremitting willingness to shoulder whatever responsibility this entails. Sometimes when I've become willing to do what I should have been doing all along, I want praise and recognition. I don't realise that the more I'm willing to act differently, the more exciting my life is. The more I am willing to help others, the more rewards I receive. That's what practicing the principles means to me. Fun and benefits for me are in willingness to do the actions, not to get immediate results. But being a little kinder, a little slower to anger, a little more loving, which makes life better day by day. And I stuttered over that a little bit. But in essence, really what it's saying in that reading, and also the start of the 12 by 12 step 4, is that we're looking to improve our balance, the way we look at the world and the way we are in it, and our behaviour and our actions and our attitude. So if we work at that, we get a bit of serenity. It doesn't mean it's going to be happy all the time. Serenity is happy or sad as life is. So when we say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, I'm somewhere near to where life can be, just one day at a time. DonInLondon, good morning. April 10, 2008, all about AA. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions.
AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So good morning, and I'm doing my video just a little bit earlier because I have to go out and have a consultation with my doctor, and hopefully we can get to the reason for these, which is yellow fingers. And I thought it had to do with eating oranges or too much carrots, but it's not, because I don't do that to excess. So it could be something I'm taking in terms of new stuff, or a reaction of insulin with other stuff besides me. And there's only one way to find out, and that's to go find out. And I guess, like anybody else, I put on a brave face when I go to the doctor. I want to be fine, and I don't want to be bothered really by having to do these things, but I need to, and find that place of openness and honesty, which just means I have to be vulnerable and share what's wrong and what's right. And I know in the past, whenever I've gone for consultations before I got into the fellowship of AA, I would always put on a brave face, and I don't know that it ever helped me any to do that. So we have to show our vulnerability some of the time. And I guess what I'm learning is the more people know the inside me, the inside job, if you like, of who I am, the better it is, because then people are relating to the real person, and not the one I might portray or act out in public. And we do this because we're scared that if somebody finds us vulnerable, they can attack us, and it's something of nature which makes us do this, and of nurture too. And I went to 2 meetings yesterday, as I said I was going to. One at lunchtime at Eaton Square, and listening to somebody who is nearly 30 years sober, and how hard it was to make their lives work without AA, because they spent 20 years out there, as they said, without a clue to behave. And I guess what we learn in AA is how to behave consistent with our internal outlook as well as our external facade. And the more we are true to ourselves and to other people, the more peaceful we have a daily existence. And I've been reading this, the Practicing the Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And I haven't got very far into it, but almost each paragraph shouts at me. And here's a bit more from this morning. Change my specs so I can see, which is not good, as I'm going to the doctor and my blood sugars must be rare. Anyway, instead of watching the thinker, you can also create a gap in the mind stream, simply by directing the focus of your attention into the now. Just become intensely conscious of the present moment, which is like right now, so that we're not obsessing with our thinking. This is a deeply satisfying thing to do. In this way you draw consciousness away from mind activity and create a gap of no mind in which you are highly alert and aware but not thinking. This is the essence of meditation. In your everyday life you can practice this by taking any routine activity that normally is only a means to an end and giving it your fullest attention so it becomes an end in itself. For example, every time you walk up and down the stairs in your house or place of work, pay close attention to every step, every movement, even your breathing. Be totally present. Or when you wash your hands, pay attention to all sense perceptions associated with that activity, the sound and feel of the water, the movement of your hands, the scent of the soap, and so on. Or when you get into a car, after you've closed the door, pause a few seconds and observe the flow of your breath. Become aware of a silent but powerful sense of presence. There is one certain criterion by which you can measure your success in this practice, the degree of peace that you feel within. So, in other words, if we concentrate in the moment of now and practice those things which are actually going on right in front of us, we get to stop that obsessive thinking in the back of our minds so that we can concentrate on the ever-present moment of the now. Now, how simple is that, and how hard is it to do? And the answer is, it's like when you're listening to something on the telly and you know it's going on, but your mind is elsewhere and focusing on thinking rather than being. And the more I listen in the rooms recently, the more it is on being rather than self-obsessed thinking. So, daily readings or daily reflections for today, this book. April, all about step 4, and that's the fear less moral inventory. Growing up. The essence of all growth is a willingness to change for the better, and then an unremitting willingness to shoulder whatever responsibility that entails, as Bill sees it, page 115. Sometimes when I've become willing to do what I should have been doing all along, I want praise and recognition. I don't realise that the more I'm willing to act differently, the more exciting my life is. The more I'm willing to help others, the more rewards I will receive. That's what practicing the principles mean for me. Fun and benefits for me are in the willingness to do the actions, not to get immediate results. Being a little kinder, a little slower to anger, a little more loving makes my life better day by day. And I bought some software to how to make music, and it's going to be a frustrating time for me. So what I'm saying is, any new activity, if you relish it, rather than put up with barriers and say, oh God, that's going to be hard work, we'll get somewhere, and it's about having the patience to do that. And as Bill sees it, this one, not doing it except by linearly, so it doesn't necessarily follow step 4. It says here, page 128, back to work. It is possible for us to use the alleged dishonesty of other people as a plausible excuse for not meeting our own obligations. Once, some prejudiced friends exhorted me never to go back to Wall Street. They were sure that the rampant materialism and double-dealing down there would stunt my spiritual growth. Because this sounded so high-minded, I continued to stay away from the only business that I knew. When finally my household went broke, I realised I hadn't been able to face the prospect of going back to work. So I returned to Wall Street, and I have ever since been glad that I did. I needed to rediscover that there were many fine people in New York's financial district. Then too, I needed the experience of staying sober in the very surroundings where alcohol had cut me down. A Wall Street business trip to Akron, Ohio, first brought me face to face with Dr. Bob, so the birth of AA hinged on my efforts to meet my bread and butter needs and responsibilities. So, back to work for me would actually, I prefer not to go back to work in that place. And there's a good reason why not, and that is they wouldn't take me back anyway, because I'm so out of it in that big old environment. And, we have to relearn things. If a skill is not used, we have to go back and start at scratch. And this is why I like the idea of this music program, because I have to start from scratch, and I have no preconceived ideas except that it's frustrating already. And that's good, because learning requires effort, and the more effort I put into something, the more likely it is that it will feel good, be satisfying, be in the moment, and not take me back to obsessive thoughts. And whoever thought that me would ever turn to music as a discipline, or as it happens to be, an art, to try and make some. I think we all make music in our own hearts. April 10th from 24 Hours a Day. It's this. When I came to AA, I came into a new world, a circle world, a world of sobriety, peace, serenity and happiness. But I know that if I took just one drink, I'll go right back to that old world, that alcoholic world, that world of drunkenness, conflict and misery. The alcoholic world is not a pleasant place for an alcoholic to live in. Looking at the world through the bottom of a whiskey glass is no fun after you become an alcoholic. Do I want to go back to the alcoholic world? Well, on a daily basis I try not to. And when I went to my second meeting last night down at Ealing Broadway, I met one or two people on the way, and they'd had very difficult days, and it was, do I go to a meeting or do I go to the pub? And sometimes it feels like that, and we know going to the pub is self-destructive, but sometimes we have that in our heads and it won't go away until we get to a meeting where we have to be in the present, ever-present moment of now to make sense of what's going on around us, and then we find peace and tranquility for at least an hour, and that feeling of drinking goes away.